Hi, it's Peter again. I'm here with Ben Mourra, the writer and co-director of Love Post-Lockdown. Ben, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So Ben, we've just come out the screening of your film. I believe it's the first time you've seen it in a physical environment, in a festival. How was it for you?
Yeah, it was really good. Obviously we see it on fairly large screens when we're editing, but to see it with an audience, to hear the laughs at the appropriate times, it's always nice.
That's always good, yeah.
Yeah, but actually there were a couple of scenes, especially that scene at the end, towards the end, where one of the actors, I won't give it all away, gets a bit emotional. And that looks a lot different up on the big screen. So very happy to see it up on the big screen. Yeah,
did bring out the nuances in the film.
Yeah, just a couple. I think that just looked a little clearer, and the range that delivered was really good acting.
So Love Post-Lockdown.
Yes.
What's the premise?
I mean, the story really explores the anxieties that I was feeling, locked on my own, having sort of come out of a relationship just before the lockdown, and it was April 2020. Sort of wandering around the house. I knew I was really bad at online dating, and I just thought, God, whoever locked down with someone is going to be miles ahead of me once we come out of lockdown. I'm going to be socially awkward. I'm not going to be able to, what happens once all these masks come off, and will there be some people who are still, taking a little longer to let go of some of the, PPE and some of the caution that we've been asked to adopt. So it was just exploring that anxiety, and it's like another layer on top of all the sort of negotiations that happen in the first date. This is sort of like another layer on top of that about, how serious is the other person taking it, how careful is everyone being. So that's what the film's about. It's just exploring that. It's a very light rom-com sort of, exploring that.
Got a lot of good laughs in the screen as well.
There's a couple of laughs in it. Yeah, it's not a laugh out loud slapstick. Yeah. It really is it's more rom than com, but I feel it's more of a piece that takes people on a little escape from perhaps some of the frustrations of living in lockdown. I was not expecting when I wrote it to still be in lockdown a year later.
I was going to say, at the time, what were you thinking? How long?
I thought we were coming out of it. Like I wrote it in a day. We shot it 2 weeks later over a weekend, and I edited it in a week. So it was good to go from start to finish. We were thinking better get it's released in June because it's more meaningful when we're just coming out of lockdown. So I thought we had a sort of like a time limit. We had to get this out quickly. We're still in lockdown.
And here we are a year later. Yeah, so still relevant. Unfortunately, in a way, it'd been lovely if we were over. And
absolutely.
You could have played your film much earlier.
Yeah, but I also think I hope that no one looks at it and thinks of it as an anti-mask, anti-lockdown film. It's not. It explores one person. So this is called post-lockdown. So lockdown is over, masks aren't required anymore. So it's about what happens on that first date and whether, at what point will the cautious person, if ever, decide that this is okay, this is fine, this is human connection.
Where did you shoot the film?
It was all shot we actually shot it on the week before the first lockdown officially ended. Right. So that gave us a couple of challenges. We had to shoot it with a really small crew, as in essentially 3 of us made the film.
Okay.
Plus, 2 actors, we had an assistant, and we had hair and makeup. So in total, 8 people were involved. Right. But between the 3 of us, we covered everything from, writing, all the pre-production, planning, all the key roles. So in terms of, the credit list at the end, it's just that little bit of panning around a couple of different names on some of the props from the film. But it's not a long list. That was because of the fact that it was shot during the last week of lockdown, taking as many precautions as possible. One of the things we found, because that was the first time we'd sort of explored it, was catering was like triple what we originally thought we'd spend, because everything had to be individually packaged. There was no let's serve up a curry and get everybody having a bowl of curry. None of that was possible. So.
How did you find your two actors? Because the piece really does, like, it obviously relies on them. There's only the two of them.
Really
How
does.
did you find them?
Yeah, really good question. Because I think you know, when I wrote it, I was literally in lockdown on my own in my flat,
Sure.
noticing that my neighbour was also on his own in his flat. So I suggested to him one day when I saw him out the window, I said, "Hey, do you want to go up and do you want to have a beer one day? Like, you know, I noticed you're on your own," because he was there with his brother before. And he said, "Yeah, I am on my own. Let's have a beer." So I suggested Hoxton Square, because we live really right in front of Hoxton Square. And he said, "Oh no, it looks too busy. There's too many people there." And I said, "Well, how about up on the roof?" He goes, "I didn't know we had a roof," because he's only a new neighbour.
Oh, wow.
So we went upstairs, had a beer. I found out that he was a filmmaker.
Okay.
Wow. I said, "Okay, you're a filmmaker." He did all the sound design, by the way. The sound design is immaculate. It's a really good, like it's got some nice, you know, the soundtrack's good, but the sound effects and everything, it's just really, really nice to watch it with your headphones on. So it turns out he's a filmmaker. And I said, "Well, you're a filmmaker, I'm a filmmaker. We're stuck here doing nothing." So we then decided to make this film. I went downstairs and wrote a story. It literally was based on some of the things that had just happened and some of my insecurities. So the story wrote itself very, very quickly. He loved it. He said, "Okay, let's do this." And then I just went onto Facebook and said, "Look, do I know any couples or actors who are isolating in the same household? But I need two people." And we cast you know, two men. So it could have been a straight or gay story. There was no, you know, it just so happened that this couple is a friend of a friend. So I'd never met them before. And I mean, just casting them, it was immediate. They were the couple. You know, the chemistry, everything was perfect. So that was the only way we could shoot it, because obviously people weren't allowed to be, you know, mixing between households at that point. So they were from a bubble, and we were obviously keeping our distance on the set. So it had its challenges, but it was a friend of a friend. So friends of friends who were the couple that ended up being cast.
Interesting. Yeah, you have to be resourceful at a time like that.
Absolutely, yeah, and also financially, like, you know, self-funded. So you know, you just sort of think, we'll shoot it at my place. So we shot it at my flat, and a bit in my neighbour's flat, and upstairs on the roof, and we went out to Hoxton Square for a couple of shots. You know, in retrospect, I would have loved the first few minutes to. We didn't have time to film the first few minutes properly, so we just did first take, got what we needed, and then did the rest of the film. In retrospect, I would have shot the early loves, like the boy meets girl scene. I would have shot that last, I think, or you know, towards the end of the filming, because we got into our rhythm later. But that first scene out in the street, people watching us to see if we were adopting any, you know, proper social distancing. There's a lot of pressure to make sure we just got that scene really quickly, and I think it sort of shows. But aside from the intro, I'm quite happy with the film.
Great. What's the next project you're working on?
Well, I've got a few different ideas, but they range from some days I wake up and think, I want to just do another short quickly, and other days it's like, no, it's time to get that feature off the ground. So yeah, but generally, I mean, it's very rare that I'm interested in writing comedy. Comedy maybe, but love and rom-coms.
Okay.
You know, sweet, lovely stories. That's not usually where I tend to be attracted to. So the first film I made, a short film, was with Amelia Fox, and it's a really dark story about relationship endings. So instead of boy meets girl, it's you know, boy leaves girl, and how that whole sort of process plays out. And it's dark, and it's on YouTube. But
what's the name?
It's called Not Ever. And it's got Amelia Fox. If you search for that short film, you'll see. You can watch that. But I think the themes I tend to like to explore are ones that explore sort of like, you know, psychology and, you know, the human condition, and, you know, what drives and motivates us, and relationships, power, like, you know, the sort of mafia, family, all that sort of darker side. Not actually a mafia film, but just sort of, you know, power dynamics. I quite like exploring. I like films like that, and there were some really good films that I saw today in the festival as well. So it was good to be up against some really good quality films.
Great stuff. Thank you so much for submitting your film.
No, absolute pleasure. Thanks very much.
Enjoyed seeing it on the big screen.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Ben.
Cheers. All right. Great.